to Kelly McMiniman. If you don't know her, Kelly is speaking to us about mother love. And Kelly is a graduate from PCC about, what, was it 06? You graduated? Wow, 5 years ago already. It's kind of fast. She graduated with a belly full of child, she says, and immediately dove into 4 years of full-time mothering. She has taken up motherhood as a spiritual practice and a way of effecting real transformation in the world. And it has been her primary vehicle for applying and expanding upon her education. As a natural extension of her commitment to her child and to life itself, she has found herself contributing to various projects for the protection and regeneration of the natural world, such as stopping the spray, the creation of a film about the mass extinction crisis, permaculture education at the Regenerative Design Institute, and in singing songs of life. And if you know Kelly, what a wonderful singing voice she has. You want to sing something for us now?
No. Yeah.
Welcome, Kelly McMiniman.
So I was just going to start by saying just giving a little bit more of my credentials. I do have 2 letters after my name, right? Ma. I also have 4 letters in front of my name now, and I'm known in certain circles as Mama Kelly. 4.5 years ago, I gave birth to my son, and so that's one of my major credentials for this talk on mother love at the Cosmology of Love conference, where I would assume that we're trying to discover or shape a story of love in the cosmos. And I'm glad that Alex's talk, that he was talking about immanence versus transcendence. I would be a proponent for the balancing of the two, and in order for that to happen, my talk, I think, will be a lot about immanence, you'll find. So, love in the cosmos, it's the greatest love story there is, and where does it begin? This is where, if I had my slideshow, it would show a pregnant belly of a mom and an embryo, but it's not there, so it begins in the mother. We all come in through a mother. That's our human experience. The first cosmos that we experience is the belly of the mother. And then we journey through her into this world that we're in, the social world. And then if we're lucky, we're nourished at her breast. Most of us, even if we weren't breastfed, were definitely held a lot by our mothers in infancy. So our first experience of love is usually mother love. So our personal mother provides a primary metaphor for the cosmos and our first experiences of love. Therefore, I think that a person's relationship with their personal mother will be reflected in their understanding of love in the cosmos. In fact, the words that we use to describe the good mother are the same words that Rand has attributed to agape. Compassionate, generous, unconditional, altruistic, forgiving, sometimes sacrificial, aimed at the wholeness and full flourishing of another. Our image of the good mother is of the woman who bestows, to the best of her ability, what the child needs to fulfill itself, perhaps even without counting costs to herself. Many of these words, of course, may also be ascribed as attributes of a good father. So that's a whole nother talk that I'd love to give sometime. But I'm just wanting to point out that because we're formed in the womb and nourished at the breast as our earliest experiences, then our first experience of this kind of bestowal is an experience of mother love. And for most, it goes well beyond the womb. Our moms changed our diapers. It's not a very pleasant thing. They got up in the middle of the night, to give us comfort, to give us milk, often suffering from sleep deprivation, as I did for years. They held us even when their backs hurt. They read books and performed participated in activities that, believe me, would otherwise be very dull if there wasn't a lot of love there. So, why are there so few love songs to mothers? Why are there so few poems to mothers? Why aren't there more songs of gratitude and praise and longing that are aimed at the mother? Why aren't there more images portraying the beauty of mother love in our collective spaces? These are just questions I have. I'd like you just for a moment to reflect on your own feelings about your own mother. For example, if your mother was visiting you and you were going to a party where you were going to be with your admired friends and colleagues, would you take your mother with you? If so, how would you feel about it? Would you feel pride and excitement, enthusiasm? Would this be your opportunity to publicly praise your mother? Or would you feel some things more akin to embarrassment, annoyance, shame? I'm just curious, just asking you. We're not steeped in a culture of respect or gratitude for the love that we receive from mothers. That's here in America. I don't know what it's like in Italy. I don't know what it's like in other places, but this is what I know about here. We're not steeped in art either that portrays a divine mother who we might have reverence for. At one time in ancient history, such images were very common. And in India and in the East, of course, there's still quite a balance of images of masculine and feminine divinity. Even here, until the last century, in the form of Catholicism, there was a Marian tradition where Mother Mary was revered alongside of the masculine forms of the divinity. But not now, not here. So I'm going to these here. I have 4.5 years of personal experience as a mother. I've talked to countless mothers. I was a sociology major as an undergraduate, and it's my natural inclination to be constantly doing research and interviewing people. And I've read lots of books on parenting. And my conclusion from all of this is that basically we live in an age of alienated motherhood. Mothers, even the mothers who are really trying hard, who are trying their best to bestow the blessings of agape, that it's, kind of natural to want to do this. In many ways, mothers aren't being supported to do this by the larger society, and partners, even though they would like to support it, they're not supported in supporting the mothers, so it's kind of this big cycle. Just one example of this is nursing, okay? I know these topics are not things that are normally talked about in this community necessarily very much, but that's one reason why I'm glad to be bringing this here. In studies of primates, where primates are compared to humans, we're also primates, they have adjusted for relative rates of maturation. And if we were to do the same as other primates in their natural state, we would be nursing our children for 3 years or more. Some studies even say 4 years. So it's definitely the ideal form of nurturance for a child, both physically, because it helps build immunity, it gives them good fats for their brains development, all sorts of reasons why it's the best nurturance. It's also the best nurturance for them emotionally. It gives a child a sense of security, a sense that they are loved, a sense that the world is a friendly, nurturing place. Of course, this is only if the mother can really surrender to it and do it as an act of love, not if she's doing it resentfully, because the child will feel that. But this is virtually impossible in today's society, at least to do it for that length of time. There are external pressures. There's lots of pressure to get back into the workforce, both from, a lot of families can't afford to have only one income. They have to have 2 incomes. So the mothers often feel this from their partners as well. But there's also not a lot of social gratification in staying home and nursing your child. Not a lot of admiration or respect. There aren't any awards given for it. And you don't even accumulate Social Security credit when you're doing it. There's also the internal pressure that comes because when a woman is nursing, she's basically in an altered state all of the time. She is having oxytocin in her body and also a lot of sleep deprivation adds to it. But it's like she's constantly under a spell or on drugs that keep her mind in a fuzzy, dreamlike state and her body in a slow and kind of tired state. There's a sense of vulnerability in this. It's difficult to function at high level of complexity or abstraction. Your spatial awareness is different. It's more difficult to drive, to compute, to track many conversations and responsibilities. Really, it's easy to see how this could be part of nature's plan to help the mother surrender to her altruistic role. It's better for her not to have a lot of energy for other ambitions, or even have the ability to think about things that are beyond the immediate physical reality that she shares with her child. A baby's need for naps and holding and constant attention necessitate a very circumscribed life for any caregiver. It's pretty darn boring. And in addition, her body is being depleted of vital resources that she could need. So her life is being given over to the child in many ways. And the fuzzy spell of nursing is probably nature's wisdom. It alleviates the mother's resistance to all of these things that she must do. It helps her to just be and to just hold the child. And I think that it's this, the being and the holding, that allows a child to grow into the most brilliant, beautiful version of who they could possibly be. And this is, I think, another meaning to beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The beholder. Don't get me wrong, despite the spell, it is still very difficult to keep surrendering oneself to the needs of the beloved child, especially when you even have to fight for the right to do so. The commitment required to do this, to continue breastfeeding long term, in the face of the inner sacrifices and external pressures, is impossible to overstate. It truly takes great love. And consciousness, awareness, and ideally support, social support. So this all comes, let's see. I just want to say don't mistake me, there's no shortage of parental love in the world right now. All the parents that I know have the best intentions and participate in agape and make sacrifices for their children. I'm just saying that contemporary American culture doesn't provide support for the kind of loving that children actually need in their early years. And despite their best intentions, mothers are alienated from the full experience of motherhood that nature intended. There are many other ways that society propels mothers towards alienation rather than helping them surrender in the appropriate way to their roles. For example, doctor-mediated childbirth is rampant. We're now at the point where over 30% of births are cesarean section in America, which is midwife-assisted births in other countries that have very low death rates of mothers, the same as us, are in those countries 3% cesareans, and here we have 30%. Also, children are taken away immediately after birth to go be examined, hooked up to wires and hooked up to machines to be examined by I had this experience myself. I was in the hospital in San Francisco General, and I had no less than 6 visits from neonatal doctors who are, whatever they were. I think that's what they're called. Anyway, the doctors who wanted to come and take my baby away while he was sleeping on my chest, and they wanted to take him away to hook him up, and they were scaring me, saying, "Oh, he's at risk for this disease and that disease," and I had to really fight to keep him with me and to have him attached to me rather than attached to machines. Many mothers today have to go back to work after 6 weeks or 3 months. That means putting an infant in childcare to be cared for by someone who is not doing so primarily for altruistic reasons. Even if the parents have a strong early attachment to the child, the baby does not yet have object permanence, and so feels abandoned every day by the mother when she goes off to work. Therefore, the attachment relationship is damaged for the child. There are many ways that I could talk about alienation as childhood progresses, but I'm going to skip some of that because I'm running out of time. One of the most important books on parenting to come out in recent times is written by Dr. Gordon Neufeld, a Canadian psychologist. It's called Hold On to Your Kids. In it, Neufeld talks about the epidemic of child detachment from parents in our current society. When the parent-child attachment is not strong, he says, children do not look to their parents and other trusted adults for guidance and love, but rather to their peers. Children who are peer-oriented and peer-attached, rather than having strong, healthy attachments to adults, do not develop and mature properly. They tend to grow up to be alienated from their own emotional experience and lacking in authentic confidence. They grow up with a basic insecurity in regard to being loved, which leaves them feeling and behaving as if being cool is the thing that matters most. I think alienated mothering or alienated child rearing in general leads to children growing up without the healthy attachment bonds they need to develop and flourish as human beings. It's possible, even if nursing isn't possible, another committed person could stay home with the child and make themselves constantly, continuously present, available, and attentive in a way that would be physically recognized by the child. But this is a rare experience in our time. Despite the best intentions of contemporary parents, people are growing up without a strong experience of agape, without a deep, secure sense that they are loved in the cosmos. Because for a child, it's the physical, it's touch. Children develop for the first year to 2 years through touch, basically. Through touching things, grabbing things, through being touched. And so it's this very real, imminent, physical experience that gives them the experience that they're loved. So now we can see maybe why there aren't a lot of love songs to mothers, and why God and earth are not being worshipped as mother at this point in our society. Worship comes from Old English. It means worthship. It means to assign worth to something. So we don't have I believe that this is at the root of why we don't have a cosmology that's adequate to deal with our time and our collective problems. Teilhard, Whitehead, Barry, and Swim are all inviting us toward a cosmology of love. But for it to take hold in the collective psyche, people need to have a physical experience of love that can give us a basic trust in the physical world, which is our experience of the cosmos. I think that Jesus, Buddha, and other beings of compassion can give us an experience of being loved, certainly. But can this heal our physical insecurity and help us truly become vessels of agape in the world? I think that in order to save the world, the life-supporting world of earth, air, fire, and water, then we must love it. And to love it, we must also feel loved by it in the real way, in a Spretnakian sense of real, embodied, embedded. If, when a person is a small child and still extremely vulnerable and open, they have a physical experience of being adequately and unconditionally loved by a being greater than themselves, the mother or father or other loving adult, then there's a template for a later trust in a loving force that is greater than oneself and that exists in the real world. I had an affirmative experience that told me that I may be succeeding in giving my son such a template. One day last summer, when he was only 3 years old, I was cooking and cleaning and inside all day, and I was tired of it. And I told him, I said, I'm just going to go down and go outside and lay on the ground. And he, of course, wanted to come with me. He came with me. And as I was laying down, I said, sometimes I just need to lay down on Mother Earth. And he laid down right on top of me and said, me too. And then he said, you're my earth. And he gave a sigh of reverence. And I believe that when he grows up, that reverence, that feeling of being loved is going to translate. And what he felt when he was lying on my breast is what he's going to feel when he lays down on the ground. When we were most vulnerable and open, when it was the most appropriate time for us to fully drink in the agape that the earth and the cosmos would like to offer us, our contemporary human village failed to give many of us this experience. Our mothers were pulled and pushed away from the full embrace of pregnancy, birth, and lactation as an initiation process, which would allow agape to fully blossom in the mother's heart and to translate into action that is meaningful for the child. Such an initiation would have helped them fully surrender their egos and ambitions for the good of their children, at least for a time. Initiation is the way that the adolescent, who is driven primarily by eros, is matured into a person in whom eros has been balanced by philia and sublimated as agape. It is initiation that transforms a young person into a vessel of something greater than themselves, hopefully a vessel of love. And love in all of its fullness, not just the self-actualizing love of eros, but the love that reciprocates, philia, and the love that bestows, agape. Joseph Campbell, I'm just about done, Rand. Okay. Joseph Campbell used to talk about how initiation rites for men were in some ways an imitation of the initiation that occurs naturally for women when they begin to menstruate. He said that young women were sent off to a hut when they would bleed in order to contemplate who they already were, a vessel of life. And that was as much initiation as was needed for women. Whereas the initiation rites for young men required that they be put through ordeals consciously and usually made to bleed. They had to be made into vessels by society, whereas women were made into vessels directly by nature. However, we now live in an age of choice. We have so many ways of avoiding or partly avoiding the full impact of that initiation of motherhood. I'm grateful that we have these choices. I'm grateful that we're able to put off the different phases of initiation until we're really ready. And the result of this may be a longer adolescence, which may be a wonderful thing. This may be a way that the cosmos is reaching toward greater complexity. However, if we never have the initiation experience, one way or another, and certainly there are many forms of initiation. I'm not saying that motherhood is or fatherhood is the only way. But if we avoid the initiation experience altogether and don't support each other in going through that, then we may never really become fully mature adults. And without mature elders, the children and the adolescents who are gripped by eros, which isn't balanced by philia and agape, might burn down the whole house. An appropriate initiation into adulthood for men would perhaps turn men into willing vessels of support and protection for the women who are giving themselves in this loving way to children, to young children. This role is an equally altruistic role and one that also needs to be celebrated, one that we also need to create positive images for. But perhaps the best initiation for men in these times is one that really invites them to come in and share the more intimate roles that have been the province of the mother. The compassion and altruism that are required in the hands-on nurturing and caring of young children. I believe that when we collectively make the decision to recreate our society so that children will receive the full benefits of a strong and loving attachment relationship, then we will find ourselves back in paradise. I believe this is what Jesus is showing us, what Buddha and all the bodhisattvas are showing us, what Mother Earth is constantly showing us, and what a truly conscious, dedicated human mother shows us. When we're able to participate fully in the agape nature of the cosmos, then we find ourselves in heaven. The mythical walls that are keeping us out of paradise may be the walls that have gone up around our own hearts because our mothers were not able to hold us completely enough and for long enough because they didn't have the support they needed to do so. But there are ways to take those walls down and be transformed into a vessel of love anyway. The beauty is it doesn't much matter whether you are a receiver or a giver of agape. If you participate in it, you are in heaven. That is what anyone discovers for themselves when they fully surrender and commit to the initiations that are available to them. This may be how we can undam our hearts and save ourselves from the hell that's being collectively created. Then we will be true philosophers, lovers of the goddess wisdom, who through our love belong to wisdom, and we'll be a bunch of mother lovers.
Thank you, Kelly. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but you can ask her during the break, because we're going to take a break right now, and we'll come back at precisely 3:05.